Let's see.
Here we go, here we go. Are you ready? COC. Why you dealing with the cyber threat when you know you got the era right? Yeah, you are not alone, don't do it by yourself. Get you some defense will help. If you know you won't be cyber free, come and get you some COC. Satisfying controls, lock them access points. We won't disappoint. COC, fight cyber threats. Promise you will not regret. We go deep and penetrate. COC, come and see.
All right. Welcome to Crump on Cyber. For tonight's episode, we are going to focus on cybersecurity careers. Now, I've had a long career myself. I totally, I started my career out in the Air Force. And so my pathway was, a little bit more laid out, right? We formalized and, went to boot camp and eventually ended up going into a technology field. And then, the military paid for all of that. And certainly that's one of the great benefits of, folks that join the military. There's amazing training that is delivered. And then you immediately move into the career field, right? So by the time you come out of the military, not only, do you have some amazing training, but you oftentimes have a long list of certifications that are associated with that. Now, back in the day, we didn't have certifications quite as extensive as we do now. So I think that part of it was a little bit different. But obviously that pathway is available, but it's not for everybody, right? So we understand that kind of a thing. And so we'll talk about that. We're going to have a couple of guests planned for tonight. So we'll take a peek at that and see what we've got. So we're going to start off talking about the ups and downs that the cybersecurity field is encountering and the cybersecurity industry as a whole is encountering. And then we'll get into, yeah, the opportunity side of the house. And we'll have Freddie Cook on here, who is a 20-year cybersecurity veteran. He's been doing some amazing work out there, and so he's going to share his thoughts. And he also has a nonprofit that's focused in this field as well around getting folks into the cybersecurity field. And we're also going to have Tim Catlin on the call. And Tim is actually, for those of you that are trying to get into the field, well, here's your one. He's one of your peers. He's somebody that's been doing some, education and his own training, and he's had some experiences recently. And I think what he's going to share with you is going to be valuable if you are someone that is trying to break into this field. So we'll use his sage advice, even as somebody that's relatively new. He's already learned some very, very valuable kind of lessons, and so we'll learn more about that as we kind of work our way through the show. So the ups and downs aspects. So since the beginning of 2022, there have been about 175,000 workers that have lost their jobs working with cybersecurity or working for cybersecurity companies, right? Spans all the way back to the beginning of 2022. And Sophos, a large company, they laid off about 10% of their workforce of 450 people. Jumio, 100 people. Lacework, 20% of their workforce, 300 people. OneTrust, 1,000 people laid off. IronNet, which is a company, a cybersecurity company that was founded by former NSA director Keith Alexander. That company went through a couple of rounds of layoffs, 17% of their workforce, and then another 35%. Cybereason, 27% of their workforce cut, 300 people there. Aquasec, 10% of their workforce. Malwarebytes, 14%, 125 people. SNCC, valued at $7.4 billion, lost 14% or 198 people from their workforce in the field. Forescout, 100 of 170 employees that they had. In 2023 already, we've had Rapid7 that's lost 18% or 400 people have lost their jobs. SecureWorks, 15% or 300 people. HackerOne, 12%, 40 people. Dragos, 9% or 50 people. And we've got Tempe base just down the road here in Arizona. Bishop Fox, that lost 13% or 50% of their workforce. So that's the industry itself, getting the daylights beat out of it. Now there's a lot of companies that are out there, making layoffs because of the ups and downs of the economy. And, it seems like we're certainly on the downside for some sides of things. So that's one part of it, the cybersecurity industry. Now, how many of those, thousands of people we just kind of rattled off there were actually cybersecurity professionals? Well, that's to be seen, but they are certainly working in the cybersecurity industry. Now, really kind of in contrast to that, right? That was kind of the the downside of things. The contrast is that cybersecurity related job growth is expected to be around 35% between 2021 and 2031. Okay, so that's a very short window of time, 10 years, right? 35% growth. That's a massive amount of growth. Right now, they estimate about 3.5 million open cyber jobs on a worldwide basis. Now, here in the United States, that number is closer to 770,000, with an overall really kind of U.S. cybersecurity workforce of about 1.1 million. Okay, so So we've got a lot of open jobs relative, right? It's almost, half the people that we need are actually employed in the field, and that is problematic, obviously. So we need to make some changes, right? Some things have got to be switched up here, because how are we going to get all of these folks into these jobs, especially when we have some indications a declining workforce, right? We have a lot of young folks that are out that are really trying to get into the field. Okay. And we're making strides on the diversity side. We've got about 25% of the cybersecurity workforce uh, are women themselves. And so that's great, right? We're making some progress on that front. Um, and they're seeing really some changing trends out there in the university programs, where they're beginning to see about a 50-50 mix with men and women coming to the cybersecurity program. But, as stated, things are gonna have to change, and so these large corporations are doing some things to kinda get us down that road. Microsoft, who we talked about yesterday, and some of the ills that they're kind of going through with regard to their cybersecurity, environment there, well, they are prioritizing hiring, more women within their program, and they recently partnered with, some community colleges to train about 250,000 people by 2025. So that is, fantastic, right? And then we have a large nonprofit, ISC Squared. They're a very, very popular in this cybersecurity space. They've recently launched a free online program called Certified in Cybersecurity that is designed to help entry level cybersecurity candidates, learn the basics. They cover things like security principles, business continuity, disaster recovery, incident response, and security operations, or security operations center, SOC kind of things. And they've had 110,000 people or candidates in that program in just the first 3 months. Now, that's an online program, and online programs don't work for everybody. So we're going to bring on the line here. We've got Freddie Cook teed up, and I'm going to add him to our call, and we'll talk to Freddie about his program and what he's got teed up, and his thoughts around this whole cybersecurity, and how are we going to fill these 770,000 open positions. What do you think, Freddie? What's happening out there? And maybe do a quick introduction for yourself, and tell us a bit about your Cyber Reason, or I'm sorry, not Cyber Reason, your Cyber Pathways organization, and just share.
Yeah, yeah, I'm Freddie Cook. Uh, been in cybersecurity for some years. Spent time at the federal government and at the Defense Information Systems Agency. I was there for 12 years doing various types of cybersecurity. And I left the federal government back in 2019, and now I'm on the other side of everything. But what I noticed was that there were a lot of lessons that I learned. And I saw people going through a lot of the similar steps that I had taken to get into cybersecurity. And I realized that there's easier ways and less intimidating ways. And so, as just part of the evolution of cybersecurity, I set up myself and three of my partners set up Cyber Pathways as a way to train the youth in cybersecurity. We're starting out in Compton, California. I live in Los Angeles, so it's only about 20 minutes away from me. And working with kids to help them get certified. We're partnered with ISC Squared and CompTIA, as well as CrowdStrike and August Shell. And so that's basically what we're doing.
Yeah, that's commendable. So your target audience for students and for the program itself are just pretty much anybody that's hey, is is showing some interest in in the career field. We
Yeah,
were
so
kind of talking earlier, right?
yeah, we have a lot of interest from students, and I've actually gotten a lot of interest as well from adults who would like to break into the field. One of the things that's important to me is that IT and cybersecurity really does not require college. And I am of the opinion that if you're going into those fields, you're actually better off not going to college, that you're better off going through a course that'll teach you the basics, getting an entry level position, and using that 4 years you would be in college to actually gain experience, get a network, and get an understanding of where you want to be within those fields. Because cybersecurity, one of the things that people don't understand is that cybersecurity is extremely broad. You know that you have the uber technical pieces where you get down into malware analysis and a lot of other things, but then you've got the far less technical where you're going through insider threat investigations and supply chain risk management and policy and planning. So there's a broad range of things that you can get into. But one of the problems that I've seen is some of these colleges are pushing people towards a totally technical route and not really helping them to understand the length and breadth of this full career field. And so we jumped in to try to help these kids as well as adults to understand that yes, there is a path for you in cybersecurity.
Yeah, do you think because, when people think about cybersecurity, they do tend to kind of think, "Oh my goodness, this is, I'm not that technical." And so then they just kind of stop. They don't continue. They don't pursue the path, just because they, feel like, "Wow, maybe I didn't do so great in or math or, or engineering or something like that."
Yeah, there's a lot of that, and just a quick story. When my daughter went to college, she wanted to be a computer science major. She started off in computer science, and her first year at that school, they wanted her to do coding. And I got so angry. I called the professor and I'm like, "What are you doing? You're ruining these kids by helping them to think that if you either don't like coding or don't get coding, that you don't belong in technology." And it's unfortunate because maybe 1% of people in IT are actual coders. And so now you basically discriminated against a whole range of people who can really help in the IT field because you want them to be coders. And that's fine if that's the path you want to take is coding, but far more people are not going to want to go that route but still have an interest in technology. And I've seen a lot of the same things in cybersecurity where people hammer them with technology and don't explain to them that the essence of cybersecurity is curiosity. It's not being uber technical. It's scrutinizing the logs, scrutinizing what you've been told, what you understand about what has happened, and trying to figure out the best route. And
Yeah.
sometimes that is just not technical.
Yeah, it's, maybe more of just a critical thinking kind of a mindset, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, so what approach, you would you suggest? I mean, how do we, kind of fix that? What's the pathway, the cyber pathway, of approach, we should say?
Well, and I also do, I also do work with some colleges. Like I'm on a board of advisors at Long Beach College to try to make sure that the curriculum is actually helping people to get into the field. A lot of the colleges, they have you on this humongous research path
Mm,
that really doesn't get you anywhere. What we're doing is because of the fact that we understand in the field you have to have some of the basic certifications as opposed to degrees, and so Security Plus is one of them where we kind of figure that's kind of the bare minimum that the industry requires in order to get into the field. So we're working through with CompTIA through their Security Plus path, as well as through EC Council, their CCT, their Certified Cybersecurity Technician, so that
Nice.
we can kind of get them to a point where they can go out and find a job. And I'm also, yelling and screaming at a lot of these companies and saying you got to give these people a chance, because cybersecurity is the one field where you can really step in without loads of experience and really make a difference.
Yeah. So maybe expand on that. The employers, is it, are they opening the door wide open and welcoming all these new candidates, and being willing to work on that and bring them into new
Well,
programs,
they're
or
kind of being brought into the future, kicking and screaming. A few of them, some of them are more willing. I have to admit there are a few companies that I've worked with that are really open to it, but a lot of them, they want to say that they're reaching out to the community and all of these types of things. And what I'm trying to help them to do is actually do that. I don't want them to just go around and hiring people. Explain
right?
to me what you're looking for, what types of positions that you're looking for, so that I can make sure that I'm matching you with the right person.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of which, talking about the right person, we've got Tim Catlin, who we're going to add here. And Tim, welcome to Crump on
Thank you very
Cyber.
much.
And yeah, I think you probably have been listening to some of the stuff Freddie's been saying, and some of it might feel a little familiar. So maybe just a little bit of background about yourself and what your journey is and what you're trying to do here when it comes to cybersecurity and as a career field.
Yeah, absolutely. So pretty much I went to college and I got a bachelor's degree in health, and I worked PT and personal training and mental health for a little while, but I didn't really love it, but I've always been really big into technology. And I saw some stuff online about cybersecurity as a career field, and so I decided to just go all in and dedicate a majority of my what little free time I had working a full-time job to figuring out how to get into the field. And it's been difficult to get started because I didn't know anyone in the tech industry. So I
Mm.
had to reach out to a lot of people and put myself out there. But I feel like I met some cool people, and that's kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah, so maybe expand on how you and I got connected, and where you were at, and how that kind of played out for you.
Yeah. So I saw your profile whenever I was searching through LinkedIn to try and find somebody to potentially give me some like mentorship or some advice on how to get started in the field. Because, like you guys talked about previously, there's so many different pathways, there's so many different things you can do. There's a plethora of information and resources out there. It's kind of overwhelming to get started. And you kind of gave me a lot of good advice on how to get started. One of the things that really helped land my first sort of position was putting information out there on LinkedIn and making solid connections with people in the industry. Because how I landed that first position, more or less, was it was someone I knew prior that knew I was a hard worker, that I could figure things out really quickly, that didn't know I was doing cybersecurity. And they were like, oh my goodness, since you were posting all of this stuff on there, I found out this is what you were doing now. We'd like to figure out a way to offer you a position. So that was huge. Just putting yourself out there, trying to find people on LinkedIn or other resources to give you advice. And another thing to keep in mind for anyone getting started is Jeffrey was one of the few people that actually messaged me back. You're going to strike out a lot, and that's okay. Keep putting yourself out there, and you'll find some really good people to help you out.
Yeah, I'm I use this, phrase all the time. And you guys have heard it before, but I use it in training all the time. Rising tide lifts all ships, right? So we've got issues, right? Folks like Freddie and I that have been in the career for a long time. We do have a bit of a responsibility to help that next generation, get things going, right? So, everybody's got a little bit of time to share. It didn't take much, right? And yeah, exactly what I told, Tim was, "Hey, look, today's world is all about this social stuff, right?" I mean, it's not my forte. I mean, I certainly enjoy this kind of a thing. But all the other platforms, yeah, it's just not a world that I spend a lot of time in. It's obviously a critical component of our society today. And I told Tim, I was like, look, hey, there, companies are struggling to find people that are willing and are motivated to work, right? We got enough, I'm going to say kids, but enough people out there that, yeah, you can't get them to, to really kind of do much. And so, and Freddie and I were talking about this earlier about, hey, these companies out there that have all these open positions, right? 770,000 open positions in the United States alone. If you have somebody, right, I would say anybody that's applying to you, there's at least showing some degree of motivation, right? They want to work. That in and of itself is a differentiator in today's society because there are so many that don't, or they don't want to get into this field. So if you have, a subset of the population that is saying, "Hey, I want to work with you," they're already motivated to work, and and they want to be in the field that you're kind of. And with all of these openings, it's like, come on, right? But we see some of these things, and maybe you can talk about this, Tim, Freddie, but some of this is just unrealistic expectations, right? And you probably have seen this, Tim, where it's like an entry level position, but you've got a master's degree and 10 years of experience, right? And you on the weekends you can you fly for SpaceX to the moon and back, right? And it's so have you encountered those kinds of things, Tim, as part of your journey? And
Yes. Today I was actually spent a fair amount of time looking for a different position in cybersecurity. I'm looking for a new job, and I came across the entry level position on LinkedIn, and I was like, okay, I'll click on that and see what the requirements are. And one of the requirements was 10 plus years experience. And I was like, that doesn't even make sense. Why would you put it on there?
Yeah, what do you think about that, Freddie? Is that
I,
entry
I
level these days?
unfortunately that's absolutely ridiculous. But I just real quick, Tim, I've got to applaud you because you wanted to get into the field and you reached out for mentors to get into the field. I feel ashamed for people like myself who are on the more senior end that we're not reaching out more to help folks get into it. This is a field that is a critical need in this country. I think a lot of people don't actually understand how much in the U.S. we're under attack. From actors, from state actors, as well as these groups. And what a lot of people don't understand is that when one of these groups, when one of these actors is able to steal intellectual property from a US company, they're actually stealing taxpayer dollars because a lot of those technologies were developed with the federal government. And so people don't understand that actual link to it. And this is why this is so critical. But back to your point, it's absolutely ridiculous that they're asking for and I've seen it as well. I've seen it as well, these entry level positions, and they want you to have senior level experience. And there's no value in that. That's not helpful.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
what would we consider an entry level position? How much experience do we think would be what do we put in that zero? That field. What do you think? 0 to 2, 0 to 3? I mean,
you
is
know,
zero in there? Can we deal with zero? Can we have zero?
I think zero is the way to go. I think that it's fair to require a base level certification that shows that you've done a little bit of research and have a basic understanding of what you're getting yourself into. I don't think that's unreasonable, but I think that you have to help people along some way,
Yeah.
and this is one of the things that we were talking about earlier. Okay, 0 to 10 years experience in cybersecurity. what what technology 10 years ago is relevant
Right.
today?
Excellent point. Right.
Who
Yeah.
cares if you've got 10 years experience, because the stuff that you learned 10 years ago nobody's doing.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
threats have moved on. In
Right.
fact, if you've got experience that's more than about 10 minutes long, you may be outdated. And
Yeah.
so that's where companies really need to start looking at the person and the level of curiosity and grit that person has, because between those things, between curiosity and grit, that's really all you need in cybersecurity. Forget all of that 10 or 15 years experience with a master's degree, and your master's degree is in cybersecurity history.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Right.
That's not going to help you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's an excellent point because, some of the things I told, Tim was, look, just start posting, regularly posting daily updates, right? Oh, I'm working on this. It doesn't matter if it's cybersecurity related. That was the only thing, right? So post out there, oh, I did this. Oh, I'm messing around with that.
Mhm.
I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Because it just shows that you are invested. And to your point,
Yes.
Freddie, it's like, okay, well, I can have zero, 0 years of experience. That is fine, but you have to then, if you come in with zero, you have to show a little bit of motivation and dedication.
Mhm.
And how you can do that is do what Tim did, right? Just put
Yes.
stuff out there saying, look, hey, I downloaded this open source thing and I did this thing. And so maybe Tim, maybe you can kind of share what, some of those things that you posted, and how long did it take after you started posting before you got that call from your friend or your colleague?
Yeah, so it took about three, 3 to 3.5 weeks before I got that initial call of posting pretty regularly, and I would basically just put updates of things I was working on, labs that I was completing, certifications that I was training for, and how I thought that would value me in the long run. And got a
And
little
so
bit of interaction, but not a lot.
yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the game, right? It's because it's almost like it's kind of almost like a marketing vehicle, right? And so that they,
Mhm.
what do they say in marketing? Somebody's got to see an ad, 3 to 5 times before they take action, right? And on these social media platforms, you have no idea, where they're serving up this stuff and where it's being seen. And so, you just have to stay on it, on it, on it. So maybe you can elaborate on, what are those some of those things that you had been digging into, and some of the certs or you were pursuing, and maybe just kind of expand on some of that stuff you've been doing.
Yeah, so what I started out with was some free training for different CompTIA certifications. I started out with the ISC squared that you mentioned earlier. I was one of those first early people to get in on that, and then I completed that. And then I did the Google IT certification, which was very similar to the CompTIA A plus. Once I completed that, I studied for the Network Plus. I did Professor Messer's videos on YouTube that are free, and I went through all of them. It took me forever. I didn't really intend on taking the CompTIA Network Plus because a lot of people told me it wasn't necessarily necessary to get a cybersecurity position. but I wanted to have a strong understanding of networking, especially coming from a background that wasn't necessarily tech related. And then from there, I transitioned to the CompTIA Security Plus and kind of supplemented that with a website called tryhackme.com. And I paid $90 for a year subscription. And it has a plethora of online labs you can do, some blue team, some red team, some purple team. So I learned all kinds of different defensive postures from that and how to do like Nmap, Nessus. And then I even learned like Burp Suite and how to SSH into remote devices and different hacking tools. Because for me personally, if I could understand how they were getting in and how hackers thought and different tools that were out there, then what I wanted to do, which was more blue team defense stuff, would be easier for me.
And so, Freddie, you heard that laundry list of things. Is that not good enough for these guys?
That's absolutely qualified.
Yeah.
It's absolutely qualified. And just to let you know that the White House put out a press briefing recently about helping to get more and more young people into cybersecurity, and I know a lot of those press briefings are just just like say, hey, look at what we're doing. But what I did was I looked at the companies and the federal agencies that signed on to that briefing, and I started making calls because I know people in a lot of those companies, and I said, where are the jobs? I can help you fill those jobs. I mean, I know people. I've had so many people that I'm trying to help as well, who are just looking for a way in. And to be honest with you, once you get in, you will quickly, especially with the curiosity you've already shown, you're gonna fly past some people, and that's another thing that people are a little bit worried about. Is some young guy coming in with all of this talent and all of this curiosity and going past people, and so sometimes these artificial gates are put in for that reason alone. I had to go to college, and so do you. I had to do all this experience, and so do you. But if you look at it in terms of actually doing the job, none of that is really necessary. What you're doing right now qualifies you for a whole lot better than you've been getting, and it's really shame on us as a community for not putting our arms around you.
Yeah, I think about that 770,000. There's, we should have, 70,000 emails in our inbox tomorrow saying,
Yes.
yeah, we'd love to have, Tim join the team, right? Because
Yes.
we're struggling to find, yeah, we got all these openings, and yet here you got, somebody that literally, I mean, that is a lot of stuff, Tim. So yeah, absolutely. Kudos to you for the investment you're making. And so, we would certainly hope that the industry will, kind of right itself and, get you into the fold for sure. Because as Freddie said, somebody with motivated and obviously now knowledgeable, right?
Right.
Yeah, you do fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, so Freddie, how do we, because we're, seasoned professionals, we're maybe a little bit closer to the senior leadership in these companies. How do we influence that change? How do we change the culture of how they're viewing, entry level positions and professionals? These are our peers that are leading these programs. How do we change their mind?
Well, I think that the process is starting to happen. It's a slow process, but when you get people like Tim who come into these positions and just skyrocket, it really helps it to make sense. And I think that's what we need is more and more opportunities so that people who aren't from the field can just jump in and give them the chance to show what they have. Once we're able to do that, and unfortunately, it hasn't been moving as fast as we'd like, but I've been talking to a lot of companies, for cyber pathways, because what I don't want to do is train a whole bunch of people and then they can't find jobs. And
Right.
there's too much out there. And when you're looking at entry level, you're really not paying a whole lot of money. You can take a chance on someone. And with these companies, if you come in entry level, you won't stay there long. Once you show what you can do, and us older guys who've kind of lost some of our curiosity over the years, you're just going to buzz right past us. And that's what's going to help the industry understand that we need these young people.
Yeah. And then Tim, maybe from your perspective, what recommendations based upon your experience could employers be doing better when they have somebody that,
Mhm,
hey, I'm on the hook, right?
mhm.
I submitted an application.
Right. Well, so yeah, a lot of the problems, you got to understand the pipeline. First off, when you submit an application or a resume, a CV to a company, it's not going to a hiring manager. It's not going to an experienced person. More often than not, it's going through either a recruiter or someone in human resources. Now, what ends up having to happen is the hiring manager has to do a better job helping the recruiter understand what they're looking for. And so what happens is that a recruiter looks at your resume and sees that you don't have a whole lot of experience. They don't understand that, hey, this person may have some curiosity that we might like. It takes the hiring manager talking to human resources and to the recruiters and saying, this is what we're looking for,
Yeah.
and fashioning your position descriptions in order to find those, because the recruiter is looking based on the position description. If you don't fit that position description, then there's nothing they can do. They can't forward you. And
Yeah.
so you have to take the time to look through those PDs and fashion them for what you're actually looking for, and that will help the recruiters actually find these people.
Yeah. Yeah. Tim, what about your experience? Anything to share about your thoughts about how employers can maybe do some things better based upon what you've had to go through?
Yeah, um, I agree with what you were saying 100%. And I also think it feels like some employers just copy paste and regurgitate old
Yes.
job listings that they have instead of updating them.
Yeah,
So
they do.
instead of, they just change the title to entry level stock analyst and leave everything else the same. So then people get in there and they're like, 5 years experience, what are you talking about? And then they just get thrown in the trash. So definitely, I think that if people would go out on a limb and hire some of these people that are fired up to get into the industry, whether they have a ton of experience or not, I mean, most of the time the company is going to have to train you regardless on exactly
Yes.
their process, on the stuff they use. They're going to have to do training no matter what. So if somebody with fresh knowledge, fresh certifications, who's fired up and ready to get in there, they might climb through that training process faster, and you might.
Yeah, Tim's having a little bit of tech issues.
Yeah.
He's been buffering a couple times. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we've done surveys, and we know that, hey, yeah, we want you to have some knowledge coming in here, but what's really important is, well, who is this person, this
Right.
individual, right? Because we got some companies with, hundreds of thousands of employees, right? And
Mhm.
it's not everybody's not sitting in a room with 100,000, right? It's obviously broken down into a hierarchy, and you've got it down to, each individual, whatever management layer, they've got somewhere between 3 and 12 people reporting to them. So it's really just this huge ecosystem of team, right? And all of those team together aggregate up to layers, and you get all the way up to the executive layer. So we've got individuals that are coming into a relatively small environment, right? It's a team of 3 to 12 people. We all have to kind of get along on this kind of a team. And so there's so much personality that comes into play as part of this as well. And so having, kind of going back to this motivated individual, and their aspirations are being cut off at the pass because they've got these application tracking systems and these automated systems that are going, well, you didn't have exactly
Right.
this particular checkbox, right?
Mhm.
And but it doesn't read through this, the content. It doesn't discern that, wow, the individual has done this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing, and they are highly motivated to do the job, right? It that those systems, they get, there's no clue, right?
Right.
You can't technology your way out of that kind of, that personal feel, and it's so incredibly important. Um,
Yeah, you really can't, and it really, it's not even, and I said about the hiring manager, but it really goes beyond the hiring manager, because when a position becomes available, a lot of times it's through attrition. And so if that position required a degree before, they can't just have that same position but take away the degree requirement, because then you can face problems from your existing employees saying, "Hey, now I don't have to have it." And so what it takes is a top-down approach from executive all the way down, saying we have to do a wholesale redo on how we hire, because how we hire right now is not working, and we're not getting the candidates that we need.
yeah. Yeah. Um, Tim, any experiences as part of your, well, any idea how many places you've applied to? How many
I
times
had
you've
if I had to ballpark it, I would say 80 to 90.
wow. And how many have you heard back from?
One.
That is just so
And
disappointing.
were any of these remote positions?
Uh, I would say 55 to 60% were remote.
And all flagged as entry level positions, cybersecurity, and
That's right.
yeah, that,
Yeah,
do you get a sense of how many people, I don't know, obviously some platforms kinda tell you how many applicants are on, for that position. Any idea what the competition is looking like on, some of those, positions?
Yeah, I've kind of gone away from LinkedIn because a lot of those entry level positions I'm seeing anywhere from 200 to 2,000 applicants.
Wow.
And
Wow.
usually the ones that are higher paying have several hundred. Like one the other day was like $60 an hour and had like 1,500 applicants. But I don't need to make a ton of money. I just need something. I'll take
Right.
anything.
Yeah,
I went,
it'll come.
I'm hoping so. I went to a couple of brick and mortar places because if I can, I would rather talk face to face with a person than have someone I don't know or doesn't see me or some robot figure out if my application is good enough. And I basically went in and was like, "Do you guys have any opportunities? Like, I'll shadow and get you guys coffee for 2 weeks if that's what it takes, whatever I need to do." So hopefully something pulls through one of these days.
Mm. Wow, that is, it's shocking, right, that we have folks like yourself, out there that, are unable to get into these roles. Yeah, if for those that are interested, yeah, the money can be good, right? Where they say
Yes,
I think the entry level roles for cybersecurity, somewhere between 50 and 80,000, just kind of depending on where you're at. That's an entry level position, right? So
yes.
that's not bad money. I mean, depending on where you live, it's going to feel, a little, a bit more, in some places a bit less, but I think the median income is, somewhere around, 100K. But it won't, I mean, I can tell you in some of these jobs that I had, I mean, people are coming in entry level even above those numbers, right? The median pay 100,000. I mean, I know some folks that used to work in an MSSP that used to work for that were just really were entry level, and they were, knocking up against 90K, right? So the money is there, right? And it is, it was Freddie was talking about this. It's a very interesting, very diverse field. There's room for everybody in this
Yes,
thing,
there
right?
is.
So whether you're a writer, right? So some of the things that we're kind of going through on the defense side of the house, a huge demand for people that can write well. Okay,
Yes. Yes.
you need to be able to
Bring
kind
me
of
some
go.
English majors. Yeah.
Yes, please, 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 right? All the way up to, yeah, you do need some uber technical people, but you know what? You still need a little bit of time under your belt to, really kind of understand and appreciate that. So, folks that are thinking, oh, I'm going to go off and I'm going to get this, this certification around, pen testing or a certified ethical hacker or, this kind of stuff. It's like, oh, there's likely going to be greater demand and greater opportunity to get you in the door through something like maybe governance, risk, and compliance, maybe something in a security operations center, security analyst, right? Because you do, right? You kind of get in, you get exposed to a variety of things, even stuff Tim was talking about, the red side, the blue side of the house, who are the attackers, who are the defenders. You get a nice little sense of that, right? And so it's just a great way to kind of break into the field. So Tim, are those what kind of roles are you looking for?
Cybersecurity analyst roles are what I'm mostly looking for. I've applied to some GRC because I did take a GRC course, so I feel like that's also something that I could do. Some that are just titled under cybersecurity specialists are entry level, so I've applied to a bunch of those. But definitely more of the like cybersecurity analyst, SOC analyst is kind of what I'm hoping for.
That sounds spot on to me, Freddie. Right? Would you agree
Yeah,
that those are areas? Or
yeah, and one of the problems is the way we title these job listings is just absolutely ridiculous, because saying cybersecurity analyst, that could mean 50 different things. It really does. I think we
Sure.
we have to do a better job with our terminology, because just saying cybersecurity analyst. Now, SOC analyst, you can kind of get an understanding as to what you're going to be doing. But
Mhm.
cybersecurity analyst,
Yeah. What am I
that
analyzing?
could be that could
What is
be
the analysis?
that could be on the supply chain risk side, that could be on the insider threat side, that could be on the policy and planning side, that could be on the SOC side, that could be in about 50 different ways. And so by saying that, you really haven't told the applicant what you're looking for. So I think that's just a poor way of doing it.
Yeah, yeah, we need to be, well, and it's to what, Tim was talking about, where it just feels like people are being a little lazy when it comes to these
Yes.
job descriptions, right? Copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. When, if you really kind of sat down and thought about it, it's like, they could be a bit more specific about, because they know, right? They know what they're kind of looking for. It's
Right.
just, hey, just get those words on paper, right? And
Right.
stop kind of beating around the bush, because to your point, because if you're just using it as some general term,
Right.
well, you're going to have folks that have got, threat intelligence background, they've got GRC background, they've got maybe security analyst background, or these are the paths they want to take. And so now you're being inundated, right, by candidates, and then they end up, right, the hiring manager ends up with this mindset that I can't get any good candidates. Well, the
Right.
reason is that garbage in, garbage out. You put garbage in with your job description, so don't be surprised when you get poor results on those
Yes.
applicants, right? You got to sharpen the pencil a little bit right here. Everybody
Yeah.
has time for this, right? It's part of your job.
Yes.
So, you just got to put time on your calendar, spend 15 minutes on a job description and fine tune it. And then, yeah, don't forget about this personal stuff and his motivations. And hey, you find somebody that wants to work for you these days, that in and of itself might just be the bar, somebody, please, right?
Yeah.
A warm body. Oh, a warm body that even knows what cybersecurity means. Yes,
Yeah.
please hire. Give me 100 of them, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah. And I still think that we need to be looking at this from a national perspective, because these threats that are hitting us are coming from overseas, and our ability to secure our intellectual property, this US intellectual property, I don't think that people really understand how critical that is.
Yeah, and we see that. Well, we can see how this trend is going. It is going because we hearing about the numbers of recruiting, right? The recruiting issues on the Department of Defense, right? And that
Yes.
is a phenomenon. I was telling folks at the beginning of the show that is how I started my career. I got all my training for free, and then I got practical job experience, being in the military. When our job numbers are down, that means some proportion of those are technology, cybersecurity people, folks that in 4 to 6 years would typically make their way into the job base, and they will come in and they will, have that kind of great experience in the background. When we don't have the hiring, then yeah,
Yeah.
don't be surprised when these, positions aren't being filled. And, because they're relying on somebody else, right? They're relying on
Right.
maybe the military, or maybe it's the other employer down the street to do this uplift from ground zero, right? To, hey, let's just get them to the first level or second level, right? You have to make that investment because you have that work, right? You can't have, everybody in your, company, the the least amount of experience is 5 years,
Right.
because you're going to have a bunch of people that are unhappy because they're doing the job that they did 5 years ago,
Right.
right? I'm experienced, right? There's supposed to be somebody behind me doing
Yes.
that stuff because I'm supposed to be on my way up, and I'm kind of being held here at this level because I can't move on because you're not backfilling. And now, right, and not only am I not getting, that exposure to maybe, more a different kind of opportunities across the cybersecurity spectrum, but I'm also now being denied maybe some of my team lead, and that's going to lead me down that management path, which of course we need good managers. And so, it's just this cycle is just it's ridiculous, and nobody should be surprised that what we're doing now is not producing what we need.
Yeah,
And
Jeff, the other thing, sorry to break in, but
no.
you brought up something that just kind of, um, one of the other reasons why I'm confused why we're having so many difficulties bringing young people in is that, think about the turnover in the SOC analyst position. There's huge turnover because that is a very, very demanding job. You're trying to juggle a million different things. You have threats. You've got threat intel coming that's disparate, and trying to put all of this together. And you're working crazy hours, and sometimes, depending on what goes on, you have to work more hours. And that it's a rewarding job, but it's a stressful job.
Yeah.
And because of that, these companies are experiencing a lot of turnover in their stocks. So that would be all the more reason to bring in a new bench, to bring
Yeah,
in more people.
yeah, you need a pipeline when you got high turnover, right?
Yes.
Right? Yeah, and you're absolutely right. That is demanding job because, a lot of those security operations centers and those monitored or managed security service providers, MSSPs, are running 24/7
Yes.
schedules, right? And
Yes.
so it takes a lot of people to be able to kind of do that kind of a job. Um, but it also is what's, driving demand and the opportunity there. And so, yeah, there really shouldn't be that much of a problem for our entry level folks to, just get their foot in the door, right? And yeah, very disappointing. So let's hope that the tide turns and things do change. Otherwise, the problem's going to go from bad to worse. And when we've got things like on the line, like our nation state, health of our cybersecurity, yeah, we have to act, right? Act differently, because the current way is just not doing it for us. Any closing thoughts, Freddie?
No, I really feel bad for those of us who are senior in cybersecurity, that we haven't done a better job at reaching out to folks like Tim and making ourselves more available and trying to help, because people like Tim are going to go way beyond what we've done in cybersecurity. And this is how we evolve as an industry.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. Tim, any closing thoughts? Any words you want to share with your future employer when we come in tomorrow? I've got 70,000 emails sitting there for you. Any filtering you want me to do? Any names of companies that haven't responded that we need to just set to the side and deny them the right to somebody of high caliber like yourself?
Yeah, that would be great. Well, I wanted to thank both of you for your kind words, your advice, this opportunity in general, and to anybody who's trying to get into the field. It's tough right now, especially with the layoffs, but just keep working, keep trying to build your network, keep making yourself better, giving yourself more knowledge, so that hiring managers, when they do actually see you, they're like, I can't pass this opportunity up.
Great. I appreciate that. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure having you on. Absolutely enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully we can get this tide turning and get it rising, so we can lift him up into a great position that he clearly deserves. Yeah. Thank you for that. All right. So I'd like to certainly thank our show sponsors. We've got the CMMC MetaCon coming up in November. Okay. This is the intersection of defense, supply chain, cybersecurity, and the metaverse. Okay, so talk about some new innovative kind of stuff. So we got the CMMC MetaCon coming up that's going to focus on this new Department of Defense cybersecurity maturity model certification, and in the metaverse space, right? And then the CMMC Training Academy, leader in the CMMC training space itself. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely evening. Have a great night.
Now you know you're feeling better.